begin by introducing our two ladies over here. There is no way that I'm going to read the things they've done. I have followed them for the years that they've been in their pursuit and been so impressed. I've not had the privilege of listening to Alice, but I have heard Lynn do several, and it's just unbelievable the amount of time and the research that they've done for what they believe in and what they stand for. Alice Linahan is an established leader in new media, an educational policy advisor with Voices in Power, and Vice President of Women on the Wall, connecting the dots between the issues of education, immigration, and national security. Alice speaks publicly throughout the country to educate parents and taxpayers on the truth about what is happening in education and the unilateral mental disarmament of the next generation of voters in America. That's scary for teachers. And Lynn Davenport is an education researcher and co-host of the Ticket podcast. She lives in Dallas with her husband William, where they raised 3 children. Lynn worked for Arthur Andersen as a recruiting manager for their global IT services and business consulting practice before staying at home to raise her kids. She travels the state as an education analyst with Families Engaged for Effective Education to teach parents and citizens how to advocate and engage at the local and state level. She speaks out against experimental technologies, smart city surveillance, blockchain, data mining schemes, that's a big word, isn't it? Data harvesting, virtual learning, social impact investing, and shares the truth about government-regulated schools. Every single one of those just kind of sends a chill up your spine thinking that those are going on every day, and especially with children. These 2 ladies are going to begin by having a conversation, and then we will have time for questions and for you to give your interpretations or information.
Thank you all for being here. And I encourage you, we're live streaming it. It's on Lynn's Facebook account. And after this event, go and share that with your friends and neighbors so they can be educated as well. I've spoken here actually several times throughout the last 10 years. And so it's good to be back and see familiar faces. And, you know, when I started this back 2005, 6, when my children started really getting impacted, and I joined forces with my friend Rebecca Forrest, and she founded Women on the Wall. And it was interesting because when you see it impacting your own children, you can't stop. You just keep digging. And what I have found, I've been begging when I come and speak to groups, someone please prove me wrong. Because if I'm wrong in what I've been saying over the last decade, I will humbly submit and say I was wrong and go back to being a mom. In all these years, not one person has proven me wrong. They've attacked me and told me I was crazy and a conspiracy theorist, but it's all coming to fruition, unfortunately. And when I met Lynn, and she was a mom like me and started digging. You know, with Women on the Wall, we've had this movement, and we're still asking people to do it, to go into their children's school and ask 3 questions. Can I see what you're teaching my child? Can I see how you're teaching my child? What is the professional development of the teachers? What are the instructional materials that my teacher is using? And number 3, which opens up Pandora's box, can I see who's financially benefiting from the curriculum products on which my child's teacher is being evaluated? And when you go on that journey from can I see, which is really a weak position for a parent, can I see what you're teaching my child, to I can't see. I can see what you're teaching, I can see how you're teaching, and I can see who's financially benefiting. It's not my child, and frankly, it's not my child's teacher. Because the teachers are the pawns in this. They're being controlled. And what Lynn and I are going to share with you is to explain how they're being controlled. And I'll kind of start with our PowerPoint, and we're just going to go back and forth because we both have been in this a while.
If you have a question along the way, it's fine if you want to interrupt, because we can make this a little more interactive. So feel free to do that.
Okay, there's been a transformation in our education today, and you'll hear, oh, it's 21st century learning. Our teachers need to be brought up into the 21st century. This is nothing 21st century. This is the same battles of outcome-based education that they were pushing back in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. It's the same tactics that they keep using over and over. And it's a shift away from academics, reading, writing, math, and history, to values, beliefs, and behaviors. And they've systematically brought this transformation in through state and federal law. And in Texas, and I'll hand it over to Lynn too, there's some key entities that you need to understand who's controlling. The Texas legislature, who's passing state laws. Then you've got the TEA, the Texas Education Agency, Commissioner Mike Morath, who was appointed by, unfortunately, our Governor Abbott. The TEA, and we'll talk about it later, but we feel like they need to be completely and fully audited. Then you've got the State Board of Education, the only really elected officials in this, in these entities, the State Board of Education. And then you've got TASA, the Texas Association of School Administrators. You've got TASB, the Texas Association of School Board. They're controlling the administration and the schools. And then you've got the Education Service Centers. And they're key, and nobody really talks about them, but they are doing all of the professional development for all of these programs that the TEA is putting on them. So those key entities need to be clearly looked at, because the amount of money they're our public schools, they're not funding our public schools. You hear there's a lot of money in public education, and it's not getting to the schools, and it is not getting to the teachers. And we need to fully understand these who these entities are. Do you want to add?
She's right, the money doesn't make its way to the teachers or the students, and some of that, of course, can be blamed on the local districts, but we would argue we need to go for the mothership. That's the Texas Education Agency. Like she said, audit it, look at where the money's going, all the contracts, the vendors, the public-private partnerships, all of it. It needs to be exposed, and then we can work on the 1,200 school districts, but until we get the top, and of course, we would say reject the federal funding at the very top.
You're right, and it's important to know, and I'll give you just 1 second, you'll hear a lot of people, and I've heard it recently from a lot of these think tanks here in Texas, state tanks, get rid of the federal money, get rid of the federal, I'm all for that. What people don't understand, it won't matter, because federally, they passed a law, WIOA, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. And there are federal dollars coming back to the state for education under the Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Defense, Department of Labor, and Department of Education. That's what ADICS, school safety, that's funded, federal dollars coming back to the state for through Health and Human Services. And so we are controlled when we take 1 penny of federal dollars, whether it's through any of those entities, our education system must align to the federal Every Student Succeeds Act. That's why our standards, our TEKS, College and Career Readiness Standard, are aligned to the Common Core federal standards because we take the federal dollars. And in this document, it shows that Texas, in order to get the waiver from the federal government, we had to show that we're aligned to the Common Core Every Student Succeeds Act mandate. Our TEKS in this document that the TEA gave to the feds said that we're 92% aligned to the Common Core. So we take the federal dollars, we take the strings that control our teachers and our public schools. So it's really important to understand the state and federal laws that have already been passed that lock our system, and I'll go to that, like a set of gears. And if you really start looking at what the college and career readiness standards are, it is what they call a P20W. Preschool through the workforce. We're in a P20W system that locks us in place like a set of gears, and it is the Soviet model of education. Do you know that our children at the end of 8th grade now, through state legislation that was passed, have to decide what they want to be at the end of 8th grade? How many of you in this room knew what you wanted to be at the end of 8th grade? I still don't know what I want to be. That is part of the P20W system that has been locked in place. So we're being controlled, whether, they want us fighting Republicans against Democrats, but we're all being controlled. It's not a Republican versus Democrat issue in education because both sides of the aisle are pushing all of this. So we need to understand it so that we can, at the local level, be fighting. Once this election's over, pray for this election to be over. But once that's over, no matter who's in office, the people in this room, the people that show up at meetings like this, who truly care, we've got to get on track and understand the legislature and how they're passing laws to further this system. And if you want to know where that term P20W comes from, UNESCO and the United Nations. And we'll talk about that. The Common Core standards that are mandated through the Every Student Succeeds Act are aligned to UNESCO and their Sustainable Development Goals of college and career in the workforce. This is a global takeover of our education system. And you see, the choice readiness will use education and data for our students to be in one of 3 tracks. Career, citizen includes military, or the worker. That's why the kids have to decide what they want to be at the end of 8th grade, so we can put them into this track. This is important and people will say this is conspiracy theorists. We're conspiracy theorists, but we're not. We're analysts and data researchers. Key players in all of this: Google, Microsoft. UNESCO partners with deals to promote UNESCO's values through the world curriculum. That's what the Common Core is. The Organization for Economic and Cooperation and Development, the OECD, a world policy organization, they run an assessment system to support UNESCO's Sustainable Development Goals. Their assessment director, Andre Schleicher, a German, worked with the Obama administration to reshape the U.S. K-12 online assessment system. Online assessment system. They reshaped the assessments so they run in the background of online curriculum. They're assessing behaviors more than academics. In their own documents, the OECD quotes, "The skills, attitudes, and values that shape human behavior should be rethought to counter the discriminatory behaviors picked up at school and in the family." They want your school to be using online digital learning. They want to go around those teachers. They want access to control the algorithms. An algorithm is an opinion written into code. Whoever's writing the algorithm is controlling the outcome. Outcome-based education. This is the same battle as before. The difference between then and now is the technology and the online digital learning. I'm going to let Lynn take this over and talk about our friend Mike Morath.
Our dear.
Right. Well, so I live in the deep state of Dallas, and Mike Morath was a school board trustee in Dallas ISD. Now, I live in Dallas, but my kids went to Richardson ISD, where 60% of the district is actually in Dallas, but the rest, hello, disappeared. Well, so Mike Morath failed his way upward, and he was appointed by the governor. This would have been in 2016. He's over this massive state agency where the bulk of our taxes go to education. And so I've been watching the reforms that he was championing in Dallas ISD, and then as he failed upward, they scaled those, many of them statewide. But when he got there, he restructured the agency to bring in a bunch of little Teach for America change agents. And the business folks think that these are smart grads who come from Ivy League and really prestigious colleges, and they go into the teaching field after 5 weeks of training, and they are suddenly experts in teaching. They have to give their obligatory 2 years of teaching, and then they go on to be promised boards and commissions and jobs, political favors. There are a lot of people in political positions in school boards, even all the way up to the state legislature, who came from Teach for America. One is James Talarico, and he's a House member. He's the one that said God is non-binary from the House floor. I don't know if you've heard that. But so these Teach for America change agents, they're all through the Texas Education Agency. They're not seasoned educators, and they're not credentialed. But they carry out this mission of all of the changes that they're trying to make, and one being this global education agenda, which Morath has been successful at doing because the right thinks he's a conservative, and when he goes to the left, he knows how to use all of those words like equity, diversity, whatever the buzzword is of the day. So he can appeal to both sides. He's a bit of a chameleon. So the Republicans think our guy is in the office. So they don't pay attention to the money and the contracts and what he's doing at the agency, even though education has been in the Republican control for the last 20 years. And under Abbott's regime, he's been in there for, what, 8 years? Well, Murat's been there 8 years. I guess Abbott was elected in 2015. He's gone almost, we're going on nearly a decade. So, to say that we need to audit the agency is an understatement. We won't have a sunset review of the agency until 2028-9. That's a very long time and a lot of money. And when they talk about this $33 billion surplus that we have at the state level, that's just over taxation. There's no surplus. That's our money that they should be returning to us. So while we're focused on the school districts, like I mentioned, the 1,200 school districts, we really need to be focusing on the top. Eliminate the waste at the top. Then the 20 the regional education service centers. You all are region 11. What are you, 11? 11 out here. We're 10 where I live. You're right. But anyway, there's 20 of them that came through the legislature. So most of what we see has actually come, all the bad things have come through bad legislation. And layer upon layer upon layer. So we would advocate for no more bills. We're overbilled. We don't need more bills. With bills come massive fiscal notes. And the most egregious one happened in the 88th session, called Open Education Resources, House Bill 1605. It was a $2.44 billion bill. They spent more on it than they did the border. So that doesn't tell you where the agenda is. It's coming after our children to usher in this global curriculum, which Alice had mentioned, and Open Education Resources is what they did it through the bill. But they would say, oh, this is going to bring in Bible stories. We're finally going to get God back in the schools. So they tickled the ears of the conservative base by saying that Open Education Resources is going to now finally bring Jesus and God back into the schools. Don't be deceived, because it shifts away the resources from textbooks to technology.
That's exactly right. And when you look at the Common Core Alliance standards, I won't read all these, but I want to read the first one, the math. Because math should just be 2 + 2 is 4. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat, 2 + 2 is 4. And I know Democrat liberal moms and dads who aren't on board with all of this stuff either, because they want their children to be able to read well, write well, do math, and know history, so they have an equal opportunity at success in life. But let me read this to you from some of the Common Core math developers. We first need to determine the moral, social, and political order we believe to be desirable, then set out our educational purposes, and in light of those purposes, choose curriculum, content, and objectives. That was Jeremy Kilpatrick in 1987. And when you look at organizations here in Texas who were a part of developing our math standards and our ELA standards, like the Dana Center, people within those organizations, this is who they're listening to. So there's a purpose behind the shift of our standards. Everyone's heard of the crazy Common Core math. There's a reason why it's not just bad math. There is a purpose behind the math. It's a shift away from academics to values, beliefs, and behaviors. I'll let Lynn take this over. This is one of Mike Morath's math.
So let's see, it was a few weeks ago I was at the legislature for one of the interim hearings on this 1605 bill that I mentioned, and the commissioner was brought to up to the front to give a report on the status of the state of education and our outcome, or our performance. And math is down. Math is really bad. And we bounced back from, in some of the courses or subjects across the state since the pandemic, but math and reading were declining before the pandemic happened. So when they talk about learning loss, don't let them use that as an excuse, because we were already declining because of the way they teach these subjects. And Alice is right that they shifted away from academics to more the behavioral. And so with math, we're declining in math, but I keep thinking, why don't the legislators ask, well, how did we do with those math innovation zones, which Morath, he's not supposed to lobby. It's illegal for him to lobby as the TEA commissioner, but he does. And we could file a major ethics violation against him, but who's going to enforce it? There's no teeth. So he has rolled out these math innovation zones that came under Senate Bill 1318 back when Van Taylor was a senator. This would have been probably the 87 legislature. And the math innovation zones, they piloted them all across the state. And they set up a vehicle where investors could turn a profit on math scores. And so they would use multiple vendors software vendors for math, like Reasoning Mind and IXL Math, or Imagine Math, and I don't know if Eureka was one of those, Pat, in the math innovation zones. But anyway, so they were a complete failure. But there's no evaluation on this program that goes on for 4 years. These kids can't get that time back. You can't recover from that kind of failure. Now, they can be remediated to some degree, but when you miss that window of time, whether it's reading or math, when your brain is developing, that by 3rd grade, it's really difficult to remediate a child, and especially if they go beyond that. So they've done this human experiment across the state called Math Innovation Zones. It was a Republican. It was Tam Parker did the House bill, and Van Taylor did the Senate bill, and that was the one that the governor signed. So it's not the left. We can't blame this on the left. This is happening in our party, and most of the technologies being driven, and innovation is actually being driven by the Republican Party. And I'm a precinct chair in Dallas County. And I get called a liberal and a Democrat, and I'm part of the woke teachers unions when I say these things. No, what I'm saying is we're in power, we're in control. We should be able to truly reform, real reform, but we haven't. And so I know that this is an agenda. Alice and I have been able to prove this. We have a friend named Dr. Pat Huff, and he wrote a book about the agenda to control knowledge and information through the accountability system. So when we say this is happening through a system of gears locked in place through bad legislation, we should never support any bills unless they're bills to repeal the bad bills. That's really what we should be doing. Because when the governor has no power, if we don't bring him bills to sign, and then these bad bills that get through, the reason they get through, you might have a good bill that means well, but in order to get your good bill passed, you have to compromise your morals, your values, and your position to accept this guy's bill over here so that yours gets through. So that's how it happens. So I'm saying, no more bills. We're overbilled.
You're right. Now let's talk about OER, Open Education Resources. And I just want people to understand, this didn't just come in with 1605, which the bill that Lynn was talking about. Those of you who are teachers or have been in the education, remember when we were fighting against C-Scope? C-Scope was a curriculum management system. It was a curriculum to control what teachers were teaching in the classroom. And who was it that was pushing back? It was your veteran teachers who actually know how to teach math, who actually know how. They don't want a curriculum management system coming from the state to control what's going on in their classroom. So when we talk about OER, Open Education Resources, think of it in terms of the state, the TEA-owned curriculum management system to control the teachers and the outcomes of the students. Now, this didn't just come with the pandemic. OER was well in the works long before that. And I know Pat did a great job on the State Board of Education questioning Mike Moran on this open education resources that the Texas legislature passed the bills that funded the structure of open education resources. But where did open education resources come from? It's a technology. Where did that idea and concept come from? The United Nations, UNESCO. And when Obama was in office, he put together a curation system of curriculum that was tied to global curriculum and OER. So this is not something new. This was interesting. I found an article written in 2017 where they were talking about this when Texas expanded its role as a national open education resource. This was in June when the Texas legislature passed several measures to increase OER used within the state. And that came federal dollars from the official educational technology program. High quality education opportunities should be available to all learners. Creating an open education ecosystem involves making learning materials, data, and educational opportunities available without restriction imposed on copyright laws. This didn't come because of the pandemic. This was long before, and it's tied to the federal government and open education resources. You know, when No Child Left Behind was passed, I think it was 2001, under Bush, at that time it was illegal to have a national database on children. So what they did under No Child Left Behind, we can't leave them behind, so we got to test them to make sure that we're not leaving them behind. And so we've got to collect data on them. So they set up 50 separate longitudinal database systems. The federal government gave the state money to set up the longitudinal database system. Under Obama, they merged that database system and they changed the FERPA law, the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. It's kind of like your HIPAA law in healthcare. Obama changed the regulation. He didn't change the law, he changed the regulation to say that our children's private data can be collected without consent in the name of research. That's what opened up Pandora's box for Common Core online digital learning to come in the door. So this is nothing new. This is not as they're billing it, and it's not as some conservative Republicans are saying. Texas OER is not online. It was developed to be print. That is an outright lie. Either they don't know or they're lying. Because we've proven where OER came from. We've proven what the goals are. And the only reason why they're printing it now is because they got caught. So now they're just printing, giving the districts grant money so they can print off the online learning onto PDFs.
This is what kills me. I argued with the bill author, Brad Buckley. I said, well, if we're going to print all this stuff off, then why don't we just go back to textbooks approved by the State Board of Education and return to a classical model of education? Why are you going through this song and dance and spending all of this money when a textbook costs I don't know, what, $50? What is the check? 100? Yeah. So then these open educational resources and materials that they print into a binder that, about this thick, they're $200 or $240 per student. So we're jumping through all these crazy, they're taking us, they're distracting us, they're pivoting. Whenever they get busted, then they go, ooh, we gotta say it's this instead of this. There's a lot of rebranding. They've called it what? Started out as Gateway, or it was Amplified, then it was Gateway, and then Amplified, then it was Amplified Texas, then it was Gateway to hell, and then now it's Bluebonnet. They had to give it a Texas name, so I say, what's the next thing going to be? The Alamo, it's marketing, and whenever they get busted by the moms, then they have to redirect and come up with some rebranding. What next? Oh, and also on that Department of Education, you don't have to go back to it, but I found on there where it talks about, it also says that it's to shift resources away from textbooks to technology. So they can tell us that OER is this, but really where it's leading us is technology. Why would they call it the same thing that UNESCO termed and coined in 2002? If we're Texas, we're gosh darn individuals, and don't tread on me, and we're independent. Why wouldn't we come up with something that was Texas, really truly Texas driven, Texas originated? Because this is an agenda, and they're not going to come through the front door and go, hey, we're doing this to shift to a global curriculum. They're going to say, hey, this is the Bluebonnet, and it's classical, and the kids will finally be getting phonics and return to what works. And they're just saying what we're saying we want. That's not what they're actually doing, and we have the evidence of that.
Now, we're going to really open up a can of worms. The Republicans are pushing school choice. Our Speaker of the House position, they took out anyone who was not for school choice on the Republican side. I hate to tell you, Democrats, Obama, Clinton, they're all for school choice too. They've all been in on the game from the beginning. Where did the concept of school choice come from? UNESCO. If you read the UN documents, it clearly says that the way to globalization is through choice. Because with government-controlled choice comes rules and regulations. If you actually don't listen to the propaganda of, oh, our schools are so terrible, well, why are they terrible? Why are our math schools plummeting? Why is there values, beliefs, and behaviors coming in to destroy our public schools? Well, we just showed you. The Common Core college and career readiness standards, the people developing the curriculum and the professional development and the pedagogy and how our teachers are being forced to teach in the classroom, it's an agenda. And when the money follows the child, so do the rules and regulations, just like the FERPA law. They just changed the rules and regulations. If you look at the plan, UNESCO's plan and the Bush's plan and the Clinton's plan and the Obama's plan and Betsy DeVos's plan and Corey DeAngelos' plan, it is to charter schools. What's the difference between a charter school and a traditional public school? A locally elected school board. A charter school is run by whoever's giving the money or making the money. So the goal of equity in education is charter schools replace public schools. Everyone has federal Title I choice funds that go to any school, public, private, or homeschool. They want the money to follow the child. Every child is taught the same standards, Common Core, college and career readiness standards. The tests must be aligned to those standards. I listened to the Senate Education Committee hearing yesterday, the day before, and they were talking about how bad the STAR is, I agree, the STAR's not good. But beware, because what's coming in to replace it, they've already set it in place. It's called the Next Generation of Assessments and Accountability. And Marath was talking about in the Senate Education Committee hearing how you can do online learning, curriculum, online digital learning, and assessments in real time, just like what Andre Schleicher from the OECD was talking about doing. Marath talks out of both sides of his mouth. And that's what they're doing. Every test must align to these standards. Curriculum and software is aligned to these standards. Everything listed here is aligned to the government data collection. And now we've got statewide longitudinal database systems that are collecting data on our children from preschool through the workforce in this portfolio model of education. You know, in the United States, in the past, we had a kindergarten through 12th grade education system where in the 12th grade, you graduated and you were free. You were free to go to college. College actually meant something. You were free to go down a vocational path. You were free to fail and then come back and succeed. In this P20W system, the government's going to decide what your path you're going to go to in the end of 8th grade, and then we're going to gear you down that path. Think I'm crazy? Look at the laws that have already been passed.
Well, and along those lines, what's the best way to access those who are not in the system, such as private school or homeschool children? Is to dangle the money carrot. So that's why we call it government-regulated school choice, because that is what it is. And when you read the bills, which most people haven't, they generally support school choice because who doesn't want choice? And it sounds good when you know that you can't send your children to the neighborhood school, or you won't, because you know it's not a good education for your child, then, or your grandchild. Then of course you're thinking, well, I'm paying for this. My personal dollars are going to the public schools, and what do I get for it? So I want to take the money and let it follow the child. Well, with that, unfortunately, if you read the bills, with that comes the government strings. And by strings, we need to really define those strings. And the strings come through the accountability system, which they will impose on your private or your homeschool. The things that we're fleeing the government schools for are then going to follow into our private and homeschools. And if you don't believe me, read the bills, and they're quite detailed on how that will happen. And they'll say, no, we're going to put parameters, put guardrails in there. All the legislators say that. But the governor has said he will not sign a bill that does not have accountability measures. And by that he means testing. So in other states, what they're doing is they're doing the state test. The private schools have to do that. The woman who's over the Catholic diocese in Dallas came from Tennessee, and they do the state test. And she says, oh, no, we won't do that here. We'll do a norm reference test. I guarantee you they will not. There will be all kinds of accountability strings attached. The governor will not sign a bill that does not have strings. They know that. They tried to change the language in our party platform when I was at the convention. I watched it happen in real time. They wanted to put strings back in the language. Carrie Cheshire and those guys from Pale Horse, they were trying to put strings back in the language because they know that the governor will not sign a bill that does not have strings in it. And we went round and round. He said, you're weaponizing that language. They're weaponizing Ted Cruz, and they're weaponizing Donald Trump, and they're weaponizing Greg Abbott. No, the weaponization is the language that they're using to deceive us with the school choice marketing. Unfortunately, the only solution really is to return to a classical model in our public schools, fight for that, audit where the money is going, and have that return to the taxpayers. For real property tax relief has to start with us not spending. And where are we spending? So much of our money is at the state legislature. And it's supposed to be going to our public schools, and instead it's being routed to the state for recapture, and it's being redistributed. The wealth redistribution is happening through charter schools, through recapture, and other means. So, it's complicated. I understand this is not an easy solution. Really, the solutions are simple. The work is really hard. And taking the money and letting it follow the child, I wish that were the solution. But unfortunately, it's a plan that is a trap.
And it's a trap because of the federal and state laws that have already been passed. If you don't know what the strings are, you're going to fall for the propaganda. Because, as we've said, our public schools have been destroyed on purpose. Why was he given $50 million to put in Amplify, a curriculum, into the state? And then, when that failed, our children, the Texas children under Moran, through Amplify, Texas children were exposed to pornography, exposed to the woke curriculum, everything that we're fighting for. Moran has given $50 million to put that in. What about those kids? What about those kids? They were used as guinea pigs for a pilot. Did those parents consent? Did they know that curriculum being piloted by their school district had not been proven successful to teach kids how to read well, write well, do math, and know history? Did those parents know that their kids were guinea pigs? Did they consent? Why are we not shouting from the rooftops, oh, we just gave them Moran 1605 with a fiscal note of $2.44 billion to create 1605, a curriculum management system. Are we crazy? Are we crazy? The kids, my kids, your kids, they were stuck in this. My son was a part of all of this. He was harmed by this. It infuriates me to go down or listen to that Senate Education Committee hearing and everyone talking to Mike Moran like he's wonderful. Republican, oh, thank you so much for all your hard work. BS. Bullshit. You hurt my kid. And there are a lot of moms and dads and teachers who are really pissed off. But we're talking about school choice. That's the answer. No, it's not. No, it's not. Sorry, I get a little emotional.
There were a number of lobbying groups that rallied around House Bill 1605, and so they built a coalition from the Commit Partnership, which is a nonprofit in Dallas, and the Texas Public Policy Foundation, the Texas Association of Businesses, Texas 2036, which used to be run by Margaret Spellings, who was under George Bush as the Education Secretary, and Tom Luce. So these are some power players who were lobbying behind the bill. Now, we were told that there were about 60 lobbyists working on getting this bill across the finish line. I went door to door myself with Mary Lowe, and we tried to convince the legislators to not vote for this, and our tally was we had the votes to kill it, and the next morning they changed their minds. Legislators like Steve Toad told me he was not going to vote for it, and then he changed his mind. And I called him, and I actually cried because I was so upset. I couldn't believe that they would do that. You know, our Christian conservatives would do that. He said, Lynn, parents are finally going to have a parent portal to be able to see that woke stuff that they're learning. And I'm like, Steve, an online portal for these open education resources, which are dynamic and modifiable, which is part of the reason they like it. Think revisionist history. Your textbooks aren't modified like that. And he said that the parents will finally be able to see what their kids are learning. Well, that can change at any time when it's online, and they can show you that they're learning this beautiful story of Esther today, but then they just print something new tomorrow. And the portal is another just one of those gimmicks that they threw in there to appeal and get some amendments. But in the end, they still got, it passed, and it wasn't just Republicans. There were Democrats who voted for it. Steve said, no, Democrats didn't want this. Well, maybe the majority of them did not vote for it, but quite a few did. So it wasn't just Republicans.
About who's in this picture?
So I had mentioned the Commit Partnership, and so the founder is a retired Goldman Sachs executive. He came back to Dallas after he retired after the financial crisis of 2008. And he's listed on Mike Morath's application to be the state commissioner. They're buddies, and they've been implementing a lot of these experimental reforms in Dallas. And they worked with billionaire John Arnold to try to take over Dallas ISD back in 2014. You may have seen that on the news, the Dallas Home Rule Charter campaign to take over, where the mayor would be taking over the school district. The mayor can't even fix Dallas and all the issues in Dallas, but okay, he's going to run a school district. Well, it failed, but then it ended up being a House bill, which caused the Houston ISD takeover. So you've heard of that one school. Have you heard of the Houston ISD takeover of the school district? So they put an appointed corporate board of managers over the district. So what's happening is all of these reforms are coming from the Commit Partnership, and Todd Williams writes a lot of the bills, then he lobbies for them, and then he helps steer the funding. And Greg Abbott has appointed him to 4 education boards and commissions, including over the Permanent School Fund, which is a nearly $60 billion fund. I won't go into all of that, but we have all kinds of money in Texas. It's just not going where we need it to go. And so he's now driving a lot of this Fort Worth language. So Fort Worth is at major risk of being taken over. And many of you would say, well, rightfully so, they're a mess. But buyer beware, because it's not what you think. So it's going to be under this Senate Bill 1882, where any nonprofit or family foundation or entity can take over, and they can run the school district like a charter school, sort of like that. It's a charter partnership is what they call it, and some of the charter schools can also do this. Well, so like I mentioned, they tried to do it in Dallas with the mayoral takeover. That failed. They did do it in Houston, but it's been a big media nightmare and lots of controversy. So now they're doing it stealthily in Fort Worth. They've kind of learned how to move the game board. So now they've done it through this mayoral sort of a campaign. It's not by force, it's by stealth. And so all the nonprofit partners, everyone gets a piece of this pie. That's why all those people signed that letter that Maddie Parker sent out. All these 0 to 5 and birth to this and pre-K to gray and cradle to career and womb to tomb. All of those bottom feeders that work in that space with these fake jobs and these nebulous things. You're like, what do? I don't know. They work something in education. They're all feeding off the trough. And so when the district is taken over, it's not going to be this controversial deal. They're going to do it through Senate Bill 1882 partnerships, And it's not going to move the needle on the outcomes for the children. It's not going to move the needle. So we're better to clean up the devil we know than the devil we don't know. Sadly, we have to fight for returning to a classical model of education, pay the teachers and train them with the money saved on the wasteful and experimental technology, return that money to the classroom. It's hard work, but we could do it if everyone understood the importance of doing it. The Commit Partnership has, they're a major data harvesting and data mining operation. So they have a contract with the Texas Education Agency. Marath pays Todd Williams' nonprofit millions per year, and Commit is also funded by the Gates Foundation. They receive major grants. So that's how they're able to fund implementing all of these experimental reforms in the district. So that's why we focus a lot on the data harvesting and the data mining and what's happening at the state, because they're doing that without informed consent for the parents. We're not given any informed consent that they're harvesting and taking that data, and for what purpose. It's tracking and sorting the children for this global workforce. Yeah, it's our friend Lynn. So she found this where the countries are ranked by their overall score in implementing the UN Sustainable Development Goals and their achievement level. And the United States is now at 75%, and I'm wondering if that's before or after open education resources was voted in by the legislature. Now, this bill is not totally done yet as far as locking into place, because there is a very important State Board of Education vote in November. We have member, the Honorable Pat Hardy here in the room, and I encourage you to contact your State Board members and tell them not to vote for House Bill 1605 adoption, because the State Board does have the vote to approve these instructional materials. And if this does not pass the State Board, it will put a major wrench in the gears of Marath and the UNESCO plans of this global education system. And that gives us a much better chance of returning to the drawing board and doing a true classical model. So the bill passed, but the districts still have the right to reject them. And if the State Board rejects it, even better.
I want to play this.
Here's some good news. Data tell us that in the past 15 years, more children than ever have enrolled in primary school. This massive global effort to achieve universal education has been made possible by data. In fact, more than 1,000 internationally comparable indicators produced by the UNESCO Institute for Statistics have kept governments accountable while measuring progress on a host of education issues. But does this mean our work is done? Not yet. Data show successes and failures. Roughly 1/4 of children who enroll in primary school drop out. Of those who stay, many are not learning at the appropriate grade level. This issue is being addressed by the Sustainable Development Goal for Education. It's an ambitious plan, with governments promising 12 years of quality learning for all. But to meet and measure this goal, we need more data, especially from poor countries, so we can produce different kinds of indicators. But data are messy. Education data come from many sources, each with its own criteria and classifications. This makes it hard to answer even simple questions, such as, how much does education cost? Calculating total education spending must consider money coming from different levels of government, as well as funding from private donors and NGOs, not to mention what parents spend on books, uniforms, and other fees. To get a clearer picture, we're working with governments to develop common standards for all countries, and conducting workshops to show statisticians how to find and use data from different sources. By improving the quality of national data, governments can spend smarter, and our job of producing global indicators becomes much easier. Data also point out areas that need more attention. For example, millions of children are still not in school. What's holding them back? We work with partners in countries with high exclusion rates to collect a wide range of data and information. With detailed profiles of out-of-school and at-risk children, governments can address the factors that perpetuate inequality and tailor plans to ensure that every child enjoys the right to education. But that's still not enough. Data tell us that millions of children are leaving school without a basic grasp of reading and mathematics. How can we expect these children to compete in today's rapidly changing job market? Many countries conduct learning assessments, but right now there is no way to compare results on a global scale. So, we've begun working with partners to link different assessments and develop global measures of learning, which will enable countries to monitor student progress and strengthen policies to improve learning outcomes. This is no easy task, but if we do it right, every student, teacher, and school will have the chance to excel. We produce data to transform lives.
So, we are at the end and we'll do questions. But we wanted to, and I'll give this to Lynn too, what do we do? Every time I talk, I feel bad because people say, oh, talking to you is like drinking from a fire hose. This is overwhelming sometimes, all the time. But when you take that journey from can I see to I can see what you're teaching, I can see how you're teaching, I can see who's financially benefiting, and I cannot be silent anymore. So we have to be strategic because there is so much money behind this. And the first step is just exposing it and talking about it with our friends and neighbors. But we need to understand we've got to push for the TEA to be audited. We have to ask the question, why are kids being used as guinea pigs in our schools? For programs that have not been proven to teach them to read well, write well, and do math. Why is it okay for the TEA to put in a program that hasn't been proven successful? Do those parents know their kids are being used as guinea pigs? We need to be talking about that. So I'll let you kind of go through the list and close out, and we'll take questions.
Well, I think I've mentioned most of them, but reject the federal strings, repeal all the bad education bills, stop passing new Band-Aid bills, audit the TEA and Marat's crony deals, sever ties with the Commit partnership, and make all data sharing agreements null and void. Actually, Dallas ISD just did that with Commit. It's no longer. Give us choice in the classroom by returning to the basics of a classical model of education. Eliminate the TEA and the regional education service centers. Return our money back to the local taxpayers in each school district. Eliminate all testing contracts and partnerships with Pearson. I'm not against testing, I'm against the high-stakes testing to the tune of billions. Reject the new online computer adaptive STAR. Eliminate all harmful and wasteful technology devices in K through 8. Pay the teachers and train them with the money saved by eliminating the failed one-to-one device rollouts. Kill the $22 million legislative budget item, this is in the rider at the legislature, which has been steered to Teach for America, and stop hiring their recruits at the TEA. Evaluate and rate the performance of the Commissioner Marath and give him an F, and then fire him and put in a classical educator in that role. Those are the solutions. And from our perspective, these aren't things that you're going to hear at your local Tea Party or Republican Party meeting. What I generally hear is, oh, those teachers unions, you just can't fire a bad teacher. We've got to get rid of those teachers unions. That's all I ever hear. And we got to get rid of that CRT and the woke stuff in the schools. Okay, I'm not saying that teacher unions aren't a problem, a huge problem, that they worked to keep us locked down. They were on the wrong side of things and they're on the wrong side of the political spectrum. I'm not denying that. However, they are not the problem in education. They have to demonize the teachers in order to bring in the replacement for them, which is digital facilitators and more devices. there are no teachers and there are no libraries in the future that they're building around us right now. No libraries. So the book issue is a moot point. The dirty books, think about how much dirtier those Chromebooks are and those devices and the predatory data mining and harvesting that's happening with these devices. Every click can be monetized. I'll leave it there. I mean, y'all probably have questions, so we'll go ahead and take that from the floor committee.
One thing that, and then I'll hand it over to you. I was listening to Mike Morath at the Senate Education Committee, and they were talking about the transparency of the TEA and how children or parents can go into the TEA's website and find out their children's score, and they have complete transparency. All you have to have is your kid's social security number and their date of birth, and you can get in and see everything. Hello? Is that not a problem? Don't third-party entities have your children's social security number and birthday? Doesn't a future employer, when you go to apply for a job, have your social security number and your date of birth? Security breach. I was flabbergasted when I heard them talking about how great that was. I thought it was crazy.
And you're absolutely right, because I do that every day. Georgia had invited me because whenever we get together, I talk, because I've been a teacher for over 40 years, and I'm currently the at-risk director at a charter school. And one of the things about Amplify is we used it for a summer school program, and the teachers threw it away. I knew it was bad when I was putting it together, and so raised my awareness about 1605 as soon as they used the word Amplify. When I've been looking into it, I've given it to teachers that I work with, and it has a lot of problems. It's not. The other thing that concerns me, and this is very just common sense, and you didn't mention it, and I'm surprised, is they're going to pay school districts $60 per student to use it. If it's all this super awesome whatever, why would they give them and pay them and incentivize a program? The other thing is, as a Christian who teaches religious ed to children for over 30 years at my church, to try to get you to buy into a new program because you're a Christian and it has Bible stories. In 5th grade, in this curriculum, they discussed the Last Supper. Do you want a 22-year-old person who's graduated from college, from liberal college, defining the Last Supper into a very critical amount? In 3rd grade, Psalm 23, they want to discuss what was trying to be brought. It's kind of absurd. I've taught for many, many years. I looked at the TEA, or the TE, and TEA should burn. There's no teacher that has any respect. I work with them all the time. You call them in the morning about a question, you get a different answer. You can call 5 times a day and you'll get a different answer. It's just too big, and then there's just I could talk as long as you talk about the issues. And so my prayer is that President Trump gets rid of the Department of Education, because one of the worst things for our kids is that they demand that if you have a 6th grader who's reading on the 3rd grade level and has been diagnosed with dyslexia, learning disability, whatever, and this did not happen in my earlier years of teaching, if you read at the 3rd grade level, you took the 3rd grade test, because then you had a chance to pass. There's no 6th grade student that can pass the 6th grade reading test or the math test, because it's all reading for math now. It's all word problems. So if you can't read at your grade level, you're going to fail. We have kids, the anxiety of at-risk children right now because of stupid math and because of putting pressures on them. It's just unbelievable. And so I'm old, but I can't walk away. There's just so many things. When you get right down to it, it's an immense problem. And parents have got to wake up, because parents don't know. I mean, we have a hard problem with it. I work at a great charter school. I went there in 2018 to do some tutoring, and I loved it because there's discipline and there's the kids wear uniforms and there's respect for authority, and it's a great charter school. All of them aren't that way because we get new kids every day coming from other ones that are not that good. I personally, because of seeing public education for over 40 years and working in the system, I'm like, I don't know where you begin. I love your list, absolutely love your list. And if, in an audit, whatever can be done to make school teachers just don't get that chance anymore. It's sad. So if you have grandchildren and you know people that, they've got to be informed. So anyway, kind of sharing a little commercial with you there.
One comment, who watched the opening of the Paris Olympics and the Lord's Supper? Did you see that video?
Oh, yeah.
My daughter, I have two daughters who are great educators. One stayed home, had to share children. The one is living in, she teaches in Irving. Great discipline. The kids learn. And that she goes against the whole school. She's been teaching for 20 years. And she tries to teach some of the other teachers who at first don't know listen, but then, like the other day, she went into this class was just crazy. And so she said, well, let me model how to do this. And so she did. She learned quiet like that. Just, and so she can do it. She knows how. So I think both can be done. And also, I think parents need to know they can teach their children. It's not that hard. I mean, they just, as you say, reading, writing, math, we get intimidated. We think I can't do it, but you can do better than they're doing. So, well, I have to say this one interesting thing. Years ago, as Bill knows, I've been against schools forever, and this one time I was going to make a resolution for my precinct. So I looked and I said, well, outcome-based education, or school, whichever one it was. I thought, well, that's in our platform. I don't need to write. I'll look it up. It wasn't in there. They had taken it out. And you can only do that at a convention. And then I closed it. What's up there? Oh, we reprinted it. Somehow it just got missed. And they just forgot to put it in. Okay.
Anybody else there?
Anybody else have a question? Clarification?
You guys have pretty much been just everywhere. I see you guys throughout the state of Texas, and I just want to know, has anybody, as far as representatives, local, municipal, anybody reached out to you?
She asked if any of the representatives have reached out to me or us. I know that Alice spent a lot of time trying to get people like Ted Cruz elected, and when she kept bringing up the school choice issue, she became cut off. So it is a litmus test where someone stands on school choice. For me, I know it is for Alice. And it's everything. And if you think about the special session, how many special sessions do we have where governor said, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're going to do this, we're cramming down your throat, we're doing this, school choice, and it still failed. And the reason it failed is not because of the liberals and this and that and what the Democrat chairs and blah, blah, blah. No, it failed because if you read the bill, it was a terrible bill. House Bill 1 and Senate Bill 1. One was $34 billion. And the other one was $500 million. And if you look at it, they were tying all of this education funding, holding that, they were using that as a carrot and a stick, and it didn't work. And people saw the deception. So people were like, it's not the best bill, but they still supported it. No, We can never have that happen again, where that's the only thing that people are talking about. There's so many other issues we have in our cities and our counties and our state, and there's so many solutions that we have that we can't get the legislators to talk about this, because Abbott's coming after them if they support the public schools, or if they, there's how many races can we think of where they've taken over those seats? So, I think we need to take it off the table. We actually successfully got it off the top eight at the convention, because we use these arguments, and the grassroots understands it very well. I've traveled the state of Texas talking to True Texas Project and all these groups. Once you explain to them what it really is and the devil in the details, they're like, I don't want that. So they don't support it. But it's being crammed down our throats, and we have to ask ourselves why. And our governor was not for us during the pandemic. He is a globalist. He's been to the World Economic Forum twice. We know he's not a patriot based on his behavior. So if this is the number one thing that he wants, we should be questioning it.
And also to answer your question, no. No. And it is interesting, when I first started my journey into being, I was your Fox News stay-at-home mom, I thought, and I cheered Bush on, and, I just thought I knew everything. I didn't know anything. And when I got involved and I started working really hard to get Republicans elected, because I thought if we could just get Republicans elected, it'll all be okay. And when I started asking questions about education, and I asked Ted Cruz, and I hosted his last major event before he became senator. I had access to him in Raphael. When I started talking about education and the Common Core and the Every Student Succeeds Act at the federal level, and WIOA, and all these education bills, literally I became the enemy. Ken Paxton, I worked really hard. I worked really hard during the speaker's race back when we were trying to out Strauss. I was all in there. I held events. I was all in there. When I asked Ken Paxton, when he was a senator, what are the talking points on this bill that brings in the college and career readiness standards that you're helping? Donna, I can't remember, Davis, or the liberal Democrat. Wendy Davis. He was partnering with Wendy Davis on an education bill. I said, what are the talking points? I became the enemy. And that's when I realized this is not a Republican versus Democrat issue. They want it to be. And my fear is the Republicans are going to get labeled, as they have, as the anti-public school, as the right-wing crazy school choice people. We've got that label. They'll take us down using that label, all the while Obama and Clinton and all of them are in on it. So we have to be, as conservative Republicans, I'm assuming most of y'all are, we have to be wise. And we have to actually understand the legislation at the state and federal level that has already been passed. And when we don't get those meetings, or they suck people in like, oh, you have access, and then they turn it on you. There are a lot of Republicans, conservative women, who've been in the battle with us in education, who are out there pushing 1605 because it has Bible stories in it. It is so deceptive. I don't understand how these people can do this. I can tell you that Phyllis Schlafly with the Eagle Forum would not be for 1605. She was adamant. She read laws. She knew the danger of UNESCO. If you talk to women who were with Eagle Forum back in the day, they'll say this is bad because they understand the danger of the UN. Phyllis Schlafly completely understood the danger of the UN. So when you hear people within those organizations pushing for 1605, they've been deceived. They've been deceived. And we have to be wise to understand what this is. And when we don't get invited to the parties and the rumors around the Austin Mill or that Alice is crazy and Lynn is crazy, I really don't care. I don't care if I get invited to your party. I don't care. Yeah, we have better parties anyway. And so we're just going to keep speaking truth and prove me wrong. Please prove me wrong. Show me in the bill where it doesn't say what we say it says. Don't call me names. Don't attack me. Come up and prove me wrong.
There was a tweet about a month ago or so, and it was Don Huffines, who was my senator, who I met with him, with you, and we said, everything that we said tonight was said much more succinctly, but that was how many years ago, and I actually recorded the meeting, and I was listening to it, and I'm like, wow, we said the same thing back then, and we're still right about it. And he went on to be, a senator, and he was not reelected, but he runs his Huffines Liberty. It's a think tank, and he's really pushing school choice. But he tweets the other day, Lynn Davenport, she's a Democrat. She's always been a Democrat. She works for those woke teacher unions. She's an AFT agent. Blah blah blah. And then attached this hit article that was written, or a website that was created. So that website is truthaboutlynn.com, and it was about me and Mary Lowe, our friend. But so the same web domain goes to the TEAOER.com. So I'm like, okay, so whoever created this website supporting TEA Open Education Resources, it's the same people who created the website. That it's a very silly website. I mean, it just has pictures of posts that I've made and that our friend Mary has made. So it's the same people, but there's a lot of funding behind. There's a lot of money going to this stuff to attack us and to discredit us, and they usually do resort to ad hominem attacks. And she and I, we let it roll off our backs. I ran for school board. They'll make fun of your hair. They'll make fun of whatever. They'll go after you any way that they can. But we have to not be afraid, and we have to tell the truth about what's happening and just keep saying it. And when you meet people who understand it, it's so great. Like Peggy, I met you at another event, and you find the people who, these are genuine people. If they understand this, really, if you understand all of these complicated education issues, you can understand pretty much any other issue. It's the same agenda, but with our children, they really want access to the hearts, minds, and souls of our children. This is a deliberate dumbing down of a nation. It will change the future of America if they succeed. And so, it's important work, and we're not martyrs, and we're not, I really do consider us joyful warriors. The people the friendships that I've made along the way, they're rich and they're real, and they're all believers. All of these people who I've been locked in this battle with, they're all really believers, and we've had this group of people, and they're all across Texas. And it's not a lot of us. It's not a numbers game. We're really trying to penetrate and pierce the hearts of parents so that they understand, so they can protect their own children. because it really is just one heart at a time, one mind, one family at a time. And the reason why our organization that Mary Lowe and I are with is Families Engaged is because we do believe families matter. And when the government tries to replace the family, the child loses choice because they don't have a family. And then the school is not doing the job educating them. We learned this from Dr. Peg Luxick, who's gone before us, and in this battle. And we have to fight for our schools to be what the schools are supposed to be, not the family. And we have to fight for the family to be what the family is supposed to be. And then the church. If the church and the family, they've abandoned their role, then we really got an open door and a vacuum that this void that is there, then the government steps in and tries to replace. So I think, any other questions? I feel like we've talked to it long enough.
You talked about the OER thing and you were talking about Amplify. I remember, because I'm in the education system as well, I'm a special ed inclusion resource teacher, and when it was first implemented, I was shocked. And you talk about veteran teachers, they were too. And the school that I was, because I worked as a substitute, and I got to see and hear all the different views of all the teachers, and they were veteran teachers. I can tell you right now, and I hear it today as well, they were insulted. It was an insult, an insult. I don't know how to just can't think because my teacher brain is off right now, but it was a pure insult to what I remember one teacher telling me. All my years I've been teaching, all my years, and my kids have been passing. For them to come in and I have to take, what was it, I think 60 CEU extra hours that they had to take for this Amplify. It was an insult to me, like all my years just down the drain. They all went down the drain. And I have to teach word for word from a book. Because that's what it is. You look at it, I mean, every different, I can't think like chapters or, I can't think of the whole thing right now, but it's, you got to teach it word for word the way they want you to teach it.
We can't hear you.
Stand up to. I was told specifically that one of the goals of C-Scope at that time was to eliminate veteran teachers. They in Dallas ISD, when they lost thousands of teachers, they were fine with it because they wanted to remove institutional memory. And that's all these programs. 1605 is the same thing. It's not even, we can be fighting about the content of what's in there. But as Lynn said, it's dynamic. It can be changed at any time. It's not about the content. It's about the funding structure. That the $2.44 billion funding structure of a curriculum management system to control teachers. And teachers are being eliminated. Your veteran teachers are leaving in droves because they are insulted. But what's coming in to fill that vacuum are young people who don't understand the history, and they're given a computer program or a PDF of a computer program, and they're basically facilitators for software programs. And I applaud you, the veteran teachers or people in the system. We need veteran teachers who've left to speak up, because we know in fighting this battle and through the Can I See program or movement, I had teacher after teacher after teacher calling, please keep up. Please ask me what I'm teaching. Please ask me how I was trained to teach. Because they can't speak out. because they'll get fired. That the control by TASA and TASB, and we didn't really talk about this, but this TASA had this new vision of public education. And they came in, that was about the time of Common Core and C-Scope and all of that. And so in those documents that TASA and TASB are implementing, if you line that up with Bill Gates's transformation in education, the number one item on TASA's new vision for public education is online digital learning. So, and TASA got a $6 million grant from Bill Gates to train administrators on how to bring in all of this learning. The TEA got a $6 million grant from Bill Gates. Grants and bribes. And so we need to, as parents, I tell parents, your number one job is to protect your child. And what that looks like in your community is completely different than what it looks like in mine. And it might be that wonderful charter school. But if it's a Gulen charter school, beware, because its bill is math and science, and the people behind the curtain of the Gulen or Harmony schools, I think, and there's another name for them, they're run by an imam, Royal Public Charter Schools. They're run by an imam out of Turkey. Why couldn't the Texas legislature pass a bill to say that these charter schools have to be run by U.S. citizens? Hello? So that if you understand what the dangers are, and we can protect our own children, but as veteran teachers, people in the system, we need to start bucking the system and bucking the TEA. Elect local school board members who will not only tell the federal government to shove it, but the TEA. And bring it on. That's what's happening in Carroll ISD. So we can't, it's funny because when we were fighting this battle, we had a conference down in Austin, and this was back when Obama was in charge and his Secretary of Education was pushing all this, and they were having a conference in Austin. And so we decided to have a conference in Austin the same day right across the street. And so we brought in Dr. Jim Milgram, who is appointed to validate the Common Core math standards. He's a mathematician from Stanford, and he refused because he said they were bad. And blanking on her name, the ELA, Sandra Stotsky. So we brought in all of these national people and had this conference right across the street. And it was interesting to listen to them because they were so informative about this push for the Common Core. It wasn't anything new, that outcome-based education. And when you look at the people who have infiltrated either the union or our schools of education, and the pedagogy, and Linda, I don't know if any of y'all have heard of Linda Darling Hammond. Someone at that conference asked Sandra Stotsky, who was it that could have done this at a national level? And both Sandra Stotsky and Dr. Milgram said Linda Darling Hammond. Linda Darling Hammond she was Obama's, one of his education policy advisors. She's a humanist, and she was instrumental in the C-Scope curriculum management system. She was instrumental at the national level. And then we saw her work coming in to Texas. And so if you understand the people who fought these battles in the past, We need to listen to them. Dr. Peg Luxick, if you Google her name and pull up her video of her fighting against outcome-based education back in the 80s and 90s, someone asked her, why is it all these women who are out here fighting this battle? And she said, a man will die for his child. He will stand in the line of fire and die for his child. A mother will kill. That mother instinct, we're not advocating that. But that mama bear, that's why I get, and that's what you see happening across this state and across the nation. We talk to people, Lynn Taylor, all across the country. This is not just a Texas issue, it's a state issue. And so there are people that see it, there are people that are willing to take the bullets, and we'll be the bad guys. We don't mind that, we've been in that role for a while. But when we speak at events, or you're talking to legislators, say, you become the expert. My friends and neighbors, or your friends and neighbors don't know and love me, they know and love you. So if you get educated on this, what's happening, and you become the person in your community, that's how we build this army of parents. And so when we are out there and you hear people talking about, oh, that crazy Alice Linahan or Lynn Davenport, she is crazy, that Democrat Lynn Davenport, say, no, actually, let's talk about the issue. Let's not talk about Lynn or Alice or anybody. Let's talk about school choice. Let's talk about the fact that federal and state laws have already been passed so that when that money follows the child, so do the strings. How do we as a community talk about the issues, not the people, but the issues? And that's where we win. That's where we win. One at a time, community, talking to our friends and neighbors, and sharing what you know. We've got lots of content. I know Lynn's got her podcast, and if you Google Lynn Davenport, you'll see a lot of her wonderful work, writing. I have Voices in Power, ENPOWER.com, where I've been writing about this for the last 10 years. You can find all kinds of documents in those articles. I link documents. I tell people, prove me wrong. Here's a document I'm looking at. Tell me where I'm wrong. So if you need those documents, go to Voices in Power, or go to Lynn's work, or call us, and we can help take you on that journey with us. Can I see till I can see? And together we can make a difference.
I might be tagging you in photos.
I'm sure everybody here feels like they know way more than you even expected to know. And I've read, and you still give us new information and worthwhile information. So it's wonderful.
So what about the kids that don't speak English as a first language?
Well, and it's interesting because when you look at, she's asking, what about those kids that are English as a second language? Our borders are being flooded. And when you look at the people behind the push for open borders, it's globalism. It's globalism. It's the same people, they're pushing for an infiltration outside of our borders, inside. This education system is an infiltration from inside our borders. And who is it that is harmed the most? the children, and I don't care if you're a child whose parents on the other side of the border just thought if they could get their kid over, they'll have a better opportunity. Not only will they not have a better opportunity, they're being used. They're being used. And we need to hold Mexico or wherever they're coming, and frankly, they're not just coming from Mexico. They're coming from all over. And they're flying in. Those children are going to be the harmed. Our kids, we knew what was going on. I pulled my youngest out and homeschooled him because I knew what the math was harming him. So we were educated, we knew. Think of those kids whose parents don't know, or whose parents just send them over across the border thinking they're going to be protected, and they're going to be harmed. They're going to be dumbed down. So to answer your question, I think we've got a real problem. We've got a real problem because our borders are not closed, and we're being infiltrated from within. And that's where I think as Republicans, as conservatives, and aunts and dads and grandparents, we do have a heart for children. And that they pull on our heartstrings. But sometimes, there are people, I know, there's a priest, I'm blanking on his name, and he wrote a book about the immorality of illegal immigration. Father Basquiat. The immorality of illegal immigration. And as a Catholic priest who worked with Catholic charities, and he was all about open borders. He was all about those poor kids, just open immigration. But he was a priest in Harlem, and he went back to do a wedding, and the people there said, "Father, come walk with us on the streets in Harlem." And he walked in the streets. There was gangs. There was this competition between the black kids and the Hispanic kids. And he said, that's when I realized what we were doing was harming both sides. And he said, if a black kiddo can't get a job in Harlem, where can he get a job? So we're setting up this identity politics and hatred between races, and all kids are being harmed. So understanding, we're in a world of hurt, and I feel for those kids, and I feel for the teachers in the public schools, because that's where you've got a lot of kids that don't speak English, the number of teachers. So what are they going to do? They're going to bring in computers, and they're going to bring in online digital learning. And so then those kids will be controlled by the algorithm to modify those kids' values, beliefs, and behaviors. That's a really dangerous place to be. So I think that's a really good question, and I think we need to talk about it honestly. Honestly.
Well, it harms our children too that speak English. I mean, it works how it's done.
And those schools are deemed D and F rated if they can't bring the kids to the proper STAR results. Think about that too. Well, thank you all. Appreciate your attention span, and appreciate the questions and the engagement. And again, we're available if you need anything.